What's up, gaming world? Welcome back to our continuing coverage of E3 2018 here at Short Pause. I'm Ben. That's Brent. That's Frankie. You know who we are. And schedule's been a little bit wonky this week with obligations and work and everything that's going on. So we've got some stuff to talk about that EA revealed earlier in the week. So we're going to do that now. Obviously, they had some big things to discuss in terms of Anthem, so we've got a lot to discuss when it comes to that. But we just want to go over everything that EA revealed during their presser and kind of give you our official reactions to it. Going to be a little bit unique in that we've had a few days to process this stuff, so things have been stirring around up in the head for a few days now as we're getting to talk about it here. So first thing we're going to hit on, so they came out and discussed Battlefield with us. So obviously we know about the war stories and the destruction and all that kind of stuff. Like all the typical Battlefield staples are there. You know, and they talked about a better destruction system this time. They showed us a tank like plowing through a house and the house like falling apart. It looked cool. I mean, an exceedingly beautiful game as always with Battlefield. Battlefield continues to look better and better every single year, and Battlefield 5 is no exception. Of course, this takes place during World War II. We will have fully customizable characters available to us. They once again reiterated no loot boxes, no premium pass. So that I think that's definitely a big feather in Battlefield's cap. I don't think we've gotten any official word on what Black Ops is planning to do, right, in terms of their DLC or their premium content. So, but they've got to be thinking long and hard about their strategy with Battlefield coming out with no premium pass, right? They've got to be kind of reevaluating what they're planning to do. And then also, they officially confirmed Battle Royale coming to Battlefield 5 to the surprise of absolutely no one. And
my God, Royale,
yeah.
really?
Yeah. And they talked about they were reimagining Battle Royale for Battlefield, so it'll have destruction, team play, vehicles, all the pillars of Battlefield are going to be present in the Battle Royale mode. They showed us they introduced this ground operations mode, which sounds incredibly complex. You're fighting across multiple maps and modes. It sounds like a pretty intense. I think that's what we talked about with the hour-long matches, right? With ground operations. So, and they debuted some multiplayer gameplay for us to see after that, and it looked like Battlefield. So, nothing too crazy there. So, and a central theme of the EA conference is tell, don't show. So as with Battlefield 5, like they told us about the Battle Royale and showed us nothing about it. So just like, hey, Battle Royale's coming, please be excited or whatever. So I don't know, Brent, any thoughts on what we saw from Battlefield 5? Do you think this game is positioned to give Call of Duty a run for its money this fall?
I mean, it always does. I mean, and the thing is, it never really ever comes close to the total sales of Call of Duty. I mean, it always competes with it, but Call of Duty is always usually the runaway, shooter on the year. But, the fact that it has a campaign, the fact that there's no loot boxes, and the fact that there's no season pass is going to be very appealing to maybe those people that only buy one of those two games. People are looking at Call of Duty multiplayer only, possibly more than likely going to have a season pass. But then you got Battlefield with everything where you don't have to pay anything extra. I'm sure there's got to be something cosmetic or that you can buy, or like those little things that you can buy that'll speed your character up. But I mean, for the most part, in terms of content coming out, not having to buy anything is going to be incredibly appealing, and that's going to give Battlefield 5 a major leg up.
Yeah, I think they'll have some cosmetic stuff that you can buy for sure in there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, but didn't Battlefield 1 gave Call of Duty a run for its money when it came out, didn't it? I swear they sold was it like 20 million copies or something along the lines with that game?
Yeah, that one did very, very well. Yeah. But that was because that was alongside what Call of Duty.
Was it Infinite Warfare?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a down year for Call of Duty, where Black Ops 3 continued to outsell Infinite Warfare well after Infinite Warfare launched. So I mean, that one, I think that one kind of just won by default.
Yeah, I mean, but coming off of that release, which people love, love Battlefield 1. They're still playing the multiplayer to this day. It's still an extremely popular game. So coming off of that game with some of the improvements we're seeing here, like the Battle Royale, like the no premium pass, like the getting rid of the loot boxes, the full-on single-player campaign. These are very, very appealing for shooter fans coming off of a game that many people love to play in Battlefield 1. So I definitely think they're gonna put up a good fight this fall in terms of the shooter race. Frankie, what are you thinking about Battlefield at this point?
I'm very intrigued about it. If I'm to go to a military first-person shooter, Battlefield is the one that I typically will flock to, just because I have more fun messing around with the maps and just the mechanics in that game. And I think it's great that they're kind of doing away with the premium pass. I think they've kind of slowly been hinting towards doing that over time, just because we see like Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1, both of their DLC packs, they at some point just give them away.
Yep.
So I'm not surprised to see them going that route. Obviously, they're gaining more players, for those new maps as they're doing that. I'm guessing why else would you do this, if something is like Call of Duty's case, like if people are eating up that season pass, there's no reason for them to stop doing it,
Yeah.
So unless this year we see a significant shift of people ignoring Black Ops 4 in favor of Battlefield 5, I can't see this mattering to Activision at all. But dude, watching that tank plow through that house, jeez, my God, that's one of the things I used to love about Battlefield was you find a house you can kind of sneak up in when tanks and whatnot are flying around, and I used to have like the little tracer dart, so I'd fire that off and have a rocket launcher so that would hone in on it. Loved it. So that seems like if I try to do that now, they're just going to destroy the whole damn house. So,
Yeah.
But also, from the other side of that, being in a tank, not being able to drive through houses before was pretty frustrating. So the fact that we can get in there and do that now, that's going to be pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to it, though. I'm, as far as the whole Royale thing goes, I've said before, but I think EA and Battlefield have been primed for this. They've been slowly upping the player count for their game for years now. So adding 36 more players to the mix, 64. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think that was much of a stretch for them to do already. So it's that in a lot of ways would have been the natural evolution of the game regardless, I think. So I'll be curious to see how that plays, though. With the full Battlefield, feeling, mechanics, vehicles, destruction, all that stuff in play, I think it'll make for an interesting Royale mode. Still probably not going to play much of it. I'll probably try it out once or twice. Never play it again. But yeah, overall, like I'm actually very slowly getting excited for Battlefield this year.
Yeah, I mean they've definitely showed us some interesting stuff, and yeah, like I was saying, I think they're uniquely positioned to compete in the shooter space this year when all those games are coming out. So, definitely curious to see more about Battlefield. Was interesting too that they didn't show us much of this game. Like they at the reveal of the game, they showed us a trailer. At the press conference, they showed us a couple minutes of multiplayer footage, and that was it. Typically at this point, we've gotten either like a full-on like story segment played out, or we've had an extended multiplayer segment where we watch 64 people play each other live or something like that. The typical stuff that they do. But yeah, we haven't seen any of that. So Battlefield 5 has been played very close to the vest so far. Maybe something like Gamescom will be kind of more of a coming out party for the game a little bit later in the year. We'll have to see what their plans are with that. So moving on from Battlefield 5, we saw some stuff with FIFA 19, the UEFA Champions League, and the World Cup coming to the game. So those are big deals for soccer fans. Then they talked a little bit about the streaming and subscription in a strange segment, and this is something that a few people have mentioned now. So we saw Phil Spencer on the Microsoft stage talking about this idea of streaming and not necessarily the subscription part of it, but clearly. Like this is something that gaming is moving towards, this idea of cloud streaming and trying to get to the point where you can stream a game in HD from the cloud and have it be just like you're playing a game right off the disc or right off your hard drive. I don't know how far away we are from something like that, but EA seems to think they're on something here. I would imagine Microsoft thinks something similar. But it's an interesting time for gaming in that respect. We'll have to dive a little bit deeper into that. Maybe we can discuss that on the podcast this weekend when we wrap up B3. But I think there's a story there to be discussed. They also unveiled their Origin Access Premier service, which is a PC-based service. It will basically give you access to the entire Origin catalog, from what I understand. They were a little scant on details. I haven't read too much about this outside of the conference, but sounds like it's going to run about $99 a year from what I can gather. gives you access to the entire Origin Vault as well as new games that are coming out day and date. So Madden 19, which was returning to the PC for the first time in 10 years. FIFA 19, Battlefield 5, and Anthem are 4 of like the first new games that are going to be a part of Origin Access Premier. So, yeah. So another subscription service for EA entering the fray here. It'll be interesting to watch this stuff kind of play out and see how all of the subscription stuff kind of comes to a head in the years ahead. So moving on from there, Star Wars. So in maybe the most awkward segment of the show. So Vince Zampella's in the audience, and this is by far the strangest way to announce a game I've ever seen in my life. But they're sitting in the stands with Vince Zampella, who's obviously the head of Respawn, and he's like, "We're not ready to show you guys anything yet, but we're going to give you the name of our game. It's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It takes place during the dark times between episode 3 and 4 when the Jedi are being hunted, and it's coming out holiday 2019. And we're all just sitting there like, what? What is going on right now? Like, when have you ever seen a game released with the name and the release date before we've ever seen a single screen or a trailer or anything for the game? I was like, what is going on right now? It was really bizarre. Frankie, help me understand what was going on with Vince at this segment.
I wish I knew. I thought for sure we would see gameplay of this because, we saw last year them showing the motion capture process for lightsaber battles. Mm-hmm. We knew that last year there would be lightsaber battles in this game. Yet, that's like the only question they ask him. So we're a Jedi, we'll be able to use the lightsaber. And he just like, yeah. It's like, seriously, like Boy said, one of the most awkward things that I've seen from E3. So I'm disappointed. I really wanted to see what this game is all about, get an actual trailer instead of this really brief, vague description. So freaking weird.
Yeah, it's extremely bizarre. And like I said, this happened a bunch of times throughout this EA press conference where they're like, we're going to tell you something. We're not going to show you anything. We're just going to tell you about it. So it's even worse than the wireframes. Yeah. We couldn't even get a wireframe out of EA in these circumstances. We couldn't get a wireframe of Battle Royale. We couldn't get a wireframe whatever's going on with this Star Wars game. We couldn't get anything. But Brent, Vince Zampella's like, this game's coming out holiday 2019. He gave us a release date. We haven't even, the game's not even a thing yet. What is going on?
Dude, we looked at PlayStation's press conference last night. We saw 3 or 4 games that could possibly be fall 2019 or beyond. Mm-hmm. And we saw gameplay, we saw trailers, we saw a ton of stuff. And you have a Star Wars property at E3 being made by Respawn, and all you get is Vince sitting in a crowd telling you some info about it. That, seriously, when I didn't see that press conference right away. I had to get caught up today on it. But now that and I remember I logged on to some of these sites, like one of the worst conferences ever. I'm like, no, it couldn't have been that bad. Oh, yes, it can. And, yeah, that's just, like you said, one of the many just moments where you're just like, what the hell is going on? What? Did they just, did they leave all their presentations at home? Like, did they, oh, you didn't pack the film again? Are you serious? Like, what happened? Just a disaster.
It was really weird, but just
probably lost in the cloud.
Couldn't get internet access to it.
Yeah. There's a Bespin joke in there somewhere, but I'm not adept enough to make it. So
that's okay.
Yeah, but yeah, and it just got worse from there in terms of Star Wars. So the next they bring out the Battlefront guy onto the stage, and he proceeds to tell us a bunch of stuff that they're doing, and with nothing to show for it. So he's like, he comes out. They acknowledge that the game had a rough launch. Obviously, they've completely reworked the progression system and whatnot. They added the new Ewok hunt mode that everybody loves. Sounds like they're working on some more hunt type modes for the game. So, definitely DICE came out. They acknowledged their issues with the game. They acknowledged, though, they made it very clear that they're committed to this game for the long haul. And they have things in the works for it. They have the Han Solo season of content. They showed us some stuff from that. Terms of the new planet Kessel and the return of extraction mode, which looks really awesome. Like the stuff that they showed looks really cool. Then they started to tell us all the stuff that's coming out. So this summer there's a new squad system. There's a new Starfighter mode focused on dogfighting with hero ships. There's a new large-scale multiplayer sandbox experience focused around capturing command posts and attacking and taking out capital ships. So that sounds awesome. Mm-hmm. That would have been a really great moment to be like, in Q video. and it didn't happen. Then after that, they're like, yeah, we got more. We're getting into the Clone Wars as well. General Grievous, Count Dooku, Obi-Wan, Anakin. These are all coming to the game. Planet Geonosis, multiple levels, including the largest ever built for Battlefront. And now cue video. Nope, didn't happen there either. And then and then he finished it off by saying EA and DICE were committed to the Battlefront after the rough start. So once again, Frankie, we roll into the Battlefront segment, and we got a guy just telling us a bunch of stuff that's going to happen with I'm not sure if they realize that E3 is like a video focused conference. Like, people are watching this, like they're not reading a blog post. They're actually standing in front of us with a screen behind them with like things. Like, what is happening here?
Again, very strange, especially considering what this game has been through. It would have been really beneficial for them to kind of show off something like, here's this new mode, you're going to announce a new mode, show us it so we can see what exactly it's going to be. Even like talking up a map, like, when do you want to show that off?
Yeah.
You can't just be like, this is the biggest map we ever made, then not even show a concept image or something. So
yeah, it's like something.
even characters, like, did they even show character models for these? No.
Yeah, they showed a picture of General Grievous. That was it.
Great.
Showed us a picture of General Grievous.
I don't get it, man. It's especially like with what this game has been through. Like, you need to show us that you guys are actually dedicated to this damn game.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Brent, like all this stuff sounds awesome. Like a new dogfighting mode sounds awesome. A new large-scale multiplayer sandbox mode sounds epic.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Clone Wars is an awesome period of time that many people are excited about. Like, this stuff would have all made for a really good video for them to show us and get us excited about the game, but
dude, Frankie nailed it. Frankie nailed it right there. I mean, look, this game launched to a lot of controversy with the loot boxes. I mean, and it was bad. It was really bad. And I understand that they've gone in and they've corrected the loot system. They've revamped the progression system, but they lost a lot of people prior to that. And there's a lot of people that haven't been back to it since because they still just think it's full of loot boxes. They don't there's people like us that are informed, who read this stuff up. There's other people who jump into a game like, man, this sucks, and they don't read the news. They don't go to the IGNs, they don't go to Short Pause, they don't go to some of these other sites that don't go on social media. They don't know that, and they're just like, man, this game sucks, I'm out of here, and they're done with it. This was their chance to say, okay, look, not only did we screw things up, they did that part right, but they could have said, here's what we got coming for you, and almost like rebrand the game, like give it some new life, get people excited about it again. And you got these dudes up there just throwing out details, and you're like, what? This is what you're trying to do to get people hyped again? I don't want to hear this guy talk. I want to see the gameplay. It's just, it was just a horribly missed opportunity.
yeah, I mean, really, the whole conference was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it was.
Clearly EA like didn't have things to talk about. They didn't have things to show us. They were just trying to fill time and talking about whatever games they had in their stable. There was very few new games for them to announce. This probably would have been a year that they could have just or really they could have just dedicated the whole show to Anthem or something like that. Like maybe they could have just did that and gave us more information on that game. So, but yeah, it was an incredibly strange conference, and the Star Wars segment I think just punctuated that even more so. And just to go off your point there, Brent, I just think about what they did with something like Street Fighter V Arcade Edition.
Mm-hmm.
So they rebranded the game, they re-released it. All the previous content for the game was in that one. They got a new marketing campaign behind it. They had a new season of characters coming out. Like there was all this momentum built up around it. The fighting community was excited about the game, and it gave the game a new lease on life. Like it's back on store shelves in a newly packaged product. Like that's an opportunity they could have took here with Battlefront. Like, look, we've bundled up all the content from the game up to this point. We're re-releasing it as the Ultimate Sith Edition or whatever, and we're putting it out, and you guys can go out and get it and understand this is a completely different game than the one that we initially released, and it's been fixed. And if you're on the fence about it, like, go get it now, and yada yada yada. They didn't do any of that. So, just like you said, just a missed opportunity. So thankfully from there we moved into the strongest segment of the show, which was the EA Originals segment, which for all the flack that EA gets for some of the things that they've been a part of in the past, their EA Originals program has been really stellar. So they've released good games, they've got behind good products, good projects. They've released them to people to usually to critical acclaim, and it's been a really good program for them to cultivate some of these independent developers and get their games out to a larger crowd. One of those games in the past was Unravel.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to the show, we saw a trademark pop up or an ESRB rating, I think, pop up for Unravel 2. So we knew that this was a thing. They came out on the show. What we didn't know is that Unravel 2 is going to be available right now. So they came out on the show, they demoed the game, and then bam, it was available right then and there. I thought this was a great demo. It's a co-op focused version of Unravel where you've got to take your two yarnies and kind of work them in tandem to solve puzzles. And the segment they show where they're trying to escape from this chicken and they're distracting it with one of the yarn guys, and the other yarnies like running through the to get to the other side. Like that stuff's cool. Like that, it looked like a really fun experience. The game's beautiful. It can be played alone, so there is an option to do that. You just have to control both of the characters, and it didn't look like it was too cumbersome to do that in the demo that they showed. They talked about exploring the themes of optimism and togetherness, and how this is a more playful, friendlier version of Yarny than what we saw in the first game, even. So the big issue with this game, though, Brent, is that the co-op is apparently local only. So, I understand sometimes we get these independent games. They have a single developer, and the game comes out and it's only local co-op because it's expensive to do online co-op. This is an EA Originals game. Like, you have EA backing you on this game. How do you make a co-op, like a game completely designed around co-op, and not allow us to play online with others? I don't get it, man.
Dude, watching that trailer, and I didn't know that until just before we recorded this show. I watched that trailer and I was like, man, I cannot wait. I might pick this up so I can play it through with either Frankie or Ben or one of you guys, and we could play this cooperatively, because the cooperative gameplay looks really cool. It looks really, really fun. Like, it's elaborate and it requires some thought. And I was like, this looks really cool. Unfortunately, Ethan would not understand this game, so I don't have anyone to play it with yet because it's local only. Why can't this one have online? Why can't it have online, dude? How does online not make it into this game? EA loves everything online. How is online not in this game?
I don't know, man. It's really weird. And Frankie, I don't have any scientific data in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that the average age of your typical gamer goes up every single year, and it's up, I think, in the 30s at this point. Like, it's gotten up there as those of us that have grown up with Nintendo have kind of progressed through our years and carried it with us. Mm-hmm. So when you look at something like that, like, your average 30-year-old probably doesn't live at home with his mom or with his brother, with his siblings, like sitting in the room next to him. The average one probably is off on his own, or has a family, or has a job and doesn't live with his friends. So if I want to sit down and play Unravel 2 cooperatively the way it's meant to be played, like, I have to take an hour and a half car ride to Saginaw and hope Brent answers the door when I knock on it. So it's like, it's just weird, man. But yeah, what'd you think about Unravel 2 and the whole co-op thing?
The game looks great. I love the puzzles that they showed, using your yarn buddy to distract this chicken or turkey, whatever the hell it was. I was kind of chasing in the background there. And even just like looking, like navigating through levels together and the stuff that you have to kind of think up to do. Like, it looks like a fun game to play.
Yeah, it looks really fun.
Yeah, and I get, I get it's an indie title, but I mean, A Way Out had, a pretty elaborate online component to it. It's co-op. You can't play it any other way.
The most elaborate online component you could have. I mean, we're like playing the game simultaneously and on two different fronts, playing through a storyline. I mean, it doesn't get any more like in depth than that.
Yeah, and I mean, Hazelight's not like a veteran game studio as far as I know. I don't, outside of Joseph, whose background is in film, I don't think they're like a team of veteran game developers. So Coldwood's been around for a long time. So the fact that, for whatever reason they decided not to put online in this, I don't understand like who made that decision.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. It's funny you mentioned Way Out. They actually mentioned A Way Out during this segment as well. Over 2 million players in the first 2 weeks. Nice. On A Way Out. So it was a smashing success for them. They actually mentioned that Joseph and Hazelight are expanding and moving into a bigger studio now after the success of A Way Out. So they'll be able to continue to work on their titles and kind of bring their fresh approach to gaming to whatever they come through next. So yeah, Unravel 2 looks great. Looks like a lot of fun. It's a damn shame that it's local co-op only. Hopefully that's something that they can patch in the future, but it should have been ready to go right from the get-go. And moving on from there, we saw our second title. This is a brand new title as well in the EA Originals program. This is Sea of Solitude. Thought this was a very, very strong looking game, very strong release. Definitely has vibes of like that game company or Rhyme or something like that. Like it's got that kind of feel to it. This game is releasing in early 2019. It's coming from Joe Mai Games, which is a small studio out of Berlin. We saw creative director Cornelia Geppert on the stage, or Jeppert, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. But she was, as many of these EA Originals creators are, very passionate about her game. She was very real. She basically, this game is in some ways autobiographical with her as the writer of it. You're exploring loneliness in this game, a very interesting concept of when you're at your darkest, your most loneliest aspect, you almost morph as a person, and you're not the same person you were before. So actually in this game you play as a character, God, what is her name? K
I think it was K
like
K-A-Y.
Yeah, I think it's K. Yeah, K. So you play as a girl named K, and she is just going through this like lonely, depressing time, and she's manifesting this outwardly as a monster. So the game is about you trying to figure out why this is happening and how to reverse it. So a very, very interesting, a very introspective concept. And Cornelia mentioned that this game is done in a playful way, so that you can sit down and still enjoy the game, even though it deals with some like heavier concepts. But to those that look a little bit deeper beneath the surface, like there's this whole other layer, this whole psychological, this whole emotional layer that the game explores to those that want to look there. So it sounds incredibly interesting. I love the way the art style of the game looks as well. It looks really, really good. Frankie, what'd you think about what we saw from Sea of Solitude?
Like you, I got a lot of Rhyme vibes when they showed the gameplay of this. Kind of a very colorful but very dark looking game. The main character actually kind of reminded me of the Ring, the girl.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just like in the face. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, geez.
In like monster form, she kind of looks like
Yeah.
the Ring.
Yeah, so I'm very interested. So far the EA Originals titles that I've played have been great. I loved A Way Out. I liked what I played of the first Unravel game. Never got around to finishing it though. So, I think whoever's curating these games at EA, they have a keen eye for very talented, very strongly passionate indie studios and projects. And this looks like it's going to be another hit. So I gotta play Fee still. I keep forgetting I bought that.
It was actually it was on sale last week on PSN. I'm not sure if it's still on sale. It was on sale for $10 on PSN last week.
Yeah, I mean, I bought it. I pre-ordered it when it was coming
you're
out.
gonna have it.
Yeah, just having the time.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. Brent, I thought Sea of Solitude had a really strong showing here. It was probably the strongest segment that we saw at the conference here. What do you think about what we saw from this game?
Yeah, this one actually resonated with me the most out of all the games that we saw at EA, just because of the presentation. Like you mentioned, it's going to tackle some heady themes, especially dealing with like mental illness and stuff like that, dealing with like looking in oneself, giving into loneliness, everything that happens with that. But just the presentation looks like a very eerie game. Looks like there might actually be a couple of scares in there as well. So a beautiful world, like you said, beautiful art style. You're going to explore this world by yourself, and and also like you guys both have mentioned, they just have someone has an eye for talent right now over at EA, and they're finding some very talented developers that want to tell some really great stories, and this is one I am really keeping an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. So this one made a strong impression on me. Early 2019, they're saying on this, so this could very well be right in that same window with everything else that's coming out at the beginning of the year. So unfortunately, it's probably going to release to a crowded release window unless it gets delayed a little bit or stretched out into the spring. But yeah, very, very interested to see what becomes of Sea of Solitude. After that, we moved into the sports segment. We saw NBA Live 19 releases on September 7th. We saw Madden 19, and a very awkward exchange between a professional football player and a professional gamer. It was terrible. And then from there we got to maybe the best moment of the show when the return of Command and Conquer was revealed as an iOS Android title known as Command and Conquer Rivals. You know what? If you listen closely, you can still hear the tears of JD like gently caressing the floor as they roll down from his eyes. There's a free pre-alpha build available on Android now, and look, like for a touch-based RTS like mobile game, like this game looked fun when they played it, but this is not what the Command and Conquer crowd wants. I can assure you of that. Like
Nope.
I am not a hardcore Command and Conquer fan, but the people that are fans of that game are hardcore strategy fans that want a proper Command and Conquer on their PC. And I feel bad for the developers, but they felt the backlash when this thing got released. People were like, "Are you kidding me right now? Like we've been waiting on pins and needles for the return of Command and Conquer, and you give us a touch-based mobile game." So that's awesome. Brent, you on board with Command and Conquer Rivals? Is this what you've been looking for, man?
I'm not even a big fan of the series, and I felt bad for everybody. I was like, man, I know. I mean, I'm not a fan of the series, but I know Command and Conquer is a huge series to a lot of strategy fans. My brother loves Command and Conquer, and I actually sent him a text, and I go, dude, new Command and Conquer, and he was like, really? And I go, yeah, it's on mobile, and I can't reply what he said, but he was not happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, Frankie, you have to, like, if you're EA, somebody in there has to realize that, look, our fan base for this game is the hardcore strategy crowd. If we want to make a strategy game on mobile, maybe we shouldn't call it Command and Conquer. Maybe we should come up with a different IP and bring it to this. I don't really think that the Command and Conquer name is going to carry so much cash in a mobile setting that they have to just use that name and to appeal to people.
Yeah, like change it to Order and Overrun or something like that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Just anything. Like what were they thinking when they did they seriously think that people were gonna take this in stride and be like, yeah, all right, can't wait?
It sure seems like it. But I mean, as far as I know, the thing that bothers me the most about this is EA's mobile outings have been failures left and right.
Really?
Like I look at that Need for Speed game that they did, and I think gas was a microtransaction or something stupid. So it seems like anytime EA has done a mobile game, it's flopped. So I don't know why they would have decided, hey, we should bring back Command and Conquer. And I mean, unless they're testing the waters and seeing what interest is out there for it, not a good way to do it. I mean, I don't understand a lot of their metrics a lot of the time, but I mean, honestly, like if I was gonna go this route, I would have just put the game on the Switch. If it were me, that would have made the most sense. At least then you can kind of be a mobile game, but it's on a console, so it's okay. But I felt bad for JD. I had recorded an episode with him, and he was just, man, he was so upset. That was that day too, so it was still heated, and man, I feel for him, and that's a shame. I that's a series that I've always kind of like admired from afar because I don't have the patience for those games. Not gonna change on my phone. I'm sorry. I'm just not gonna download a strategy game on my phone. That sounds horrible.
Yeah. So, don't know what the thought was there, but let's move on from Command and Conquer.
I'm noticing a theme.
Yeah.
Just a lot of poorly thought out things.
Yeah.
a lot of poorly thought out. Once again, this conference really didn't need to happen. From there, EA went into some of the charity programs they're supporting, which is awesome. And then they finished out the show with Anthem. So a long look at Anthem. This was almost a half an hour that they dove into the game here. So I took a lot of notes on this game, guys, but I kind of want to open the floor up to you guys. So like what stood out from the Anthem reveal to you guys? Like what do you want to talk about? Frankie, hop in here. Where should we start with our Anthem discussion?
I'm intrigued about the classes, honestly. I didn't watch the entire sit-down thing because I just wanted to see the gameplay, so I skipped all of that. So I don't know if they got more in-depth about class abilities. I'm guessing not. So it was underwhelming hearing about all these different classes, and then they have this gameplay video, and I didn't really see a whole lot of different play styles outside of the dude with the shield, like just sort of running through all that stuff. Like I don't know what the Stormcaller does, but they didn't really show much of the other classes. They showed the Ranger, which is the class we've seen. This is kind of like the base class, the kind of jack of all trades class. And then we saw the Colossus, who's the heavy tank based class, like you mentioned, with the shield, deals with the heavy weapons. The Interceptor we didn't see at all. The Storm class, which is the more of the magic wizard type of a class. We saw brief little snippets during the gameplay reveal, which was really weird.
they only showed them, and it seemed like they didn't want to show these other two classes. Like they want to either save that for later or behind closed doors or for the demo, whatever the case may be. They didn't really want to show it during this segment, but they gave us a couple quick glimpses of the Storm during the gameplay reveal, and we saw the character like teleporting around the screen and shooting at an enemy with a gun. But that was basically all we saw of it. So don't know anything else other than that. But yeah, there's 4 classes, and from what I can gather, you've got the Ranger, who's the jack of all trades. You've got the Colossus, who's the heavy character, the Interceptor, which is more of probably like the stealth ninja type character, and then you got the Storm character, who is more of like a wizard or maybe like a ranged character. So if you're doing the math on that, you've got the Warlock as the Storm character, you've got the Titan as the Colossus, and then you've got the Hunter as the Interceptor, and then a Ranger as somebody who combines kind of all of them. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with the classes.
I don't know. I was really hoping that, if they're going to be announcing them, we would see them in action. Like, these are the characters you're going to be playing as in, where are we at here? June. So 8 months, probably a good time to start, telling people like what to expect out of this game character wise. Right. I mean,
yeah,
especially if that's what you're going to be announcing and kind of trying to focus on. I was really disappointed that we didn't, see these in action and learn the intricacies of each one.
Yeah, and here's my thing with the Anthem reveal. So, we talked about how this conference, there was not a lot that EA had to show, so really it didn't need to happen. I think it would have behooved them to give Anthem like its own thing. Like, this is a game with a lot of systems, a lot of things that it needs to discuss. So much like Bungie has done with Destiny over the years, where they kind of dedicate a show to this game to really get into the nitty gritty and reveal it. Like what they showed us from the game at E3 is basically what we've already seen. Like we saw a couple people flying around the map shooting at enemies. Like we already know that that's part of the game. We didn't see anything new from this segment. And the question and answer session, while it shed light on a few things here and there, like the things that people are really concerned about with Anthem are the loot system, are the progression system, are how the classes operate. Like the nitty-gritty mechanics of the game is what we're concerned about. We're not as concerned about, what it looks like to shoot an enemy in the game. Like we know it's going to be there. We know we can fly around. We know that that's probably going to be fun. But like we want to know about the other stuff because you're in a space with a genre that's a Destiny type of genre and there's a number of systems that have to be in place for this game to be successful. And those of us that have been playing Destiny for the last 4 years, which the majority of us are interested in Anthem in at least some respect. So we're all very interested to see like how Anthem is taking the Destiny formula and putting it into their game. And we didn't get a whole lot about that from the EA Play presentation there, which I think was a big reason that many of us came out of there like what? I'm a little confused about what's going on here. Brent, hop in here, man.
Well, I actually didn't see the details about the class that you were talking about. I was watching the gameplay trailer. That's the stuff I was focusing on when I was looking this stuff up. But by watching the gameplay trailers, I didn't even know this game had class. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to differentiate between the class just by looking at the gameplay. If I'm watching a Destiny gameplay, I can tell who's a Titan. I can tell who's a Hunter, and I can tell who's a Warlock. When I was watching the gameplay, I just seen 4 dudes running around shooting stuff. I was like, okay, that's cool. I had no idea this game had classes. Based on the gameplay, I had no idea. I would have never guessed it.
Yeah, it was like they didn't choose, I think, a good segment to show us. Like the gameplay segment that they showed us was not ideal. It just left us with more questions at the end of the day. It was just when it comes down to it. Now, one of the things we are super interested in Anthem is how they plan to tackle the story. So obviously, one of the things Destiny's been accused of or dropped the ball on over the years is its narrative. So it's got this rich tapestry, this sci-fi tapestry that it's created, full of lots of interesting lore and settings, and they've just been unable to tap into it and make it work within the structure of their game. So BioWare obviously is known for their stories with Mass Effect and with Dragon Age. Like these are games that people love, with the Star Wars The Old Republic games. Like these are games that people love for their narratives, for their choices, for all that kind of stuff. So people are wondering how they're going to take their storytelling abilities and convert that into a game like a Destiny type of experience and still make it make sense. So I want to go over some of the things that they talked about here. So In just a broad storytelling perspective, it sounds like it takes place in a world where the gods have vanished, and they've left the world like half created. The only thing that they've left behind is this thing called the Anthem of Creation. So one of the things they talked about is that in a lot of these games, the multiplayer games, story gets diluted because you're mixing multiplayer and storytelling into the same areas. So what BioWare is trying to do, they're trying to build a solution to this into the core of the game. They have this thing they're calling Our World, My Story. When you're out there in the open world, the world is dangerous and you're focused on your mission, and this is where the other players get to play with you. So this is what I want to get your guys' thoughts on, is this concept that they're working with here. So there's basically, we'll just, in a very basic sense, there's two areas in this game. There's the open world where combat takes place, and then there's the base, which I'll talk about in a second. So this is a living world, and it's a shared world. So weather, time of day, everyone is experiencing the same kind of stuff together. Everyone is playing Anthem at a given moment. Everyone that's playing Anthem at any given moment is seeing the same thing. So this is what they mean by our world, a world that everyone is experiencing. So when you finish a mission, you come back to your base, Fort Tarsus. So this is basically like the tower. It's the last city, or maybe the city itself is more apt. This is a single-player experience. You turn in your rewards, talk to characters, and experience the choices of your actions. So this is where your story lives and breathes. They're looking to combine BioWare is looking to combine the impact of agency, the impact and agency of single-player story with the fun of teaming up with friends to play co-op combat. So that's their goals here. They're designing it so that they can add story for years to come. Obviously everybody likes more story, and they said that the story could take a number of different turns. So it could be a new character moment from somebody that we've met in the story. It could be a world event that they drop in that deepens the lore. It could be an entirely new storyline and plot. There's any number of different ways. They mentioned that it sounds like the world's malleable and that they can drop stuff in there in real time. Mm-hmm. So, Brent, I want to get your thoughts on this idea. So it sounds like when you're out there in the world experiencing combat, like that's what that is. It's a combat setting. The story takes place inside of this city, in this hub world, which actually takes place in first person. So just hearing that, it sounds a little bit strange. Like how is the entirety of the story encapsulated in this city that you're in with these characters that you meet and talk and make decisions? It seems like at some point you would have to venture outside of the walls, right? I mean, can they really tell the entirety of the story of Anthem inside of this city? So it sounds a little bit strange. I don't know. Maybe you can make heads or tails of it.
Yeah, and look, when I look at Destiny or a game like that, I can understand how it can be difficult to make a single player narrative experience in a multiplayer focused game. I can understand there's probably a hell of a balance here you got to try to find, and it's probably very difficult to figure that out. What they're talking about here, it sounds like, is if we were to go back to the tower in Destiny and there'd be cutscenes and tons of stuff with Zavala and Cade and Ikora or any of the vendors, you're going to have a lot more discussion, not just the things where you go and talk up to one of the vendors and you just hear them jabbering in your ear as you're doing whatever you do. These are going to be meaningful conversations, and they're going to remember the things that you did early on. That's what it sounds like for me. When you're doing stuff out in the world where there's combat, everything you do out there is going to affect the narrative at the base, wherever you guys are, wherever we're hanging out at. So when we go back there, we're going to see cutscenes, we're going to hear story, we're going to have a lot of conversation. But like you said, it's going to seem very strange after a while that every time that you complete a big mission, like if you beat the game, you're not going to get a cutscene at the site of the win, or you're going to have to wait till you go back to get it at the base. I mean, that would almost. I mean, I'm not gonna. What's the word I'm looking for? It just seems like it doesn't expand a lot. It doesn't give you much room to expand upon what they're talking about. You're just basically in the same spot every time in this city talking about. So this better be a big city with a bunch of different venues and a bunch of different areas to explore, because I want some variety into my story. You know, when I'm getting a story, I don't want to be just in the same room talking to the same vendor. I want us like wandering about out in the world that we're going to be exploring. Because when we see from the combat, the world looks awesome. There's a lot of stuff out there. It's a big, beautiful place. If all the major story elements are going to be back at the city, that's going to get kind of boring after a while, unless the story is really, really good.
Yeah, I mean that's some of the same concerns I have. Frankie, what do you think about this idea, man? Of I'm also wondering too, like if you go out and you do a mission with your friends, do you then have to disband with your friends and go through storytelling sequences and the single player part of the game, and then you can join back up again to go like fight again. Like I'm a little confused on how all this is gonna work.
Yeah, if they get the Monster Hunter World online team on the game,
I was
then yeah.
just gonna say, dude, that reminds me of like when you go to Monster Hunter, you can't see anybody in that area until you go to the hub at the top, or whatever that is. But yeah, when you go back, everything is single player, and nobody else is around. Even though you're talking to each other, you're like, "Hey, we're in this city, but I can't see you." Yeah, that's exactly what it sounded like.
Yeah, that's very, very strange. But the thing I was thinking about with this was, and granted, I haven't played a ton of Mass Effect, but a lot of the interactions and the stuff, like the story of all the characters, a lot of that played out on the ship, right? Like those relationships, all of that was mostly that, and then you're kind of going out and doing your own adventures. So it seems like in some ways, to me, from the limited understanding I have of Mass Effect storytelling, thanks a lot, Andromeda, that we're not. This is kind of like BioWare's formula in a way, and they're just kind of making a bigger world for you to go out and explore. But I guess like my concern with that is just like, running out and doing missions with friends. I mean, unless your friends are characters in the city, like that are now NPCs if your friends aren't online, like if there's an actual role to them, like, and they're able to like recap what you've gone out and done. I don't, what I mean? Like I have a hard time looking at this and thinking we're going to get like a deep, meaningful story out of this.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where like this reveal, the way it was done, is just I just left with a lot more questions that I had answers, and this is definitely one of them. Like how this whole thing is going to work. So the story itself honestly sounds a lot like Destiny. So look, at the heart of the premise is a world left unfinished by the gods, but the gods left behind their massive tools, and those tools are in constant conflict with this unknowable force called the Anthem of creation. And the chaos of those things pushing against each other means that the world is constantly being reshaped in new and unpredictable ways. So that sounds cool. But violent storms, mutated creatures, gigantic monsters, a dangerous environment that requires you to wear a suit of armor, which is where the armor comes in, the javelins, to be safe in. Like this is kind of the world. It's an experience that's meant to feel alive and changing. So you have or BioWare has the ability to drop into the world at almost any time and drop a dramatic event that changes the world for everyone. Anything from gameplay to lore, as we talked a little bit about earlier. So you play as a freelancer. You're uniquely skilled to pilot the javelins. Your ancient rivals, the Dominion, they've discovered a way, they think, to weaponize the Anthem of creation. So we need to stop them and protect the free people of Tarsus, which is the premise of the story. Now, if you're breaking this down, the Anthem of creation sounds a lot like the Traveler. The characters, the freelancers, sound a lot like Guardians, and the ancient rivals, the Dominion, sound a lot like the enemies of the darkness. So and they all have different factions and stuff. That we saw them fighting one in the gameplay trailer there. I think they were called the Scars or something like that.
Yeah.
But there was a race of aliens there. But I don't know. What do you think, Brent? Does this sound like an interesting premise for a game?
Of course it does. It always sounds interesting. Destiny sounded interesting. The Division sounded interesting. But it's all going to come down to the execution. I mean, if you look at that. I mean, seriously, Destiny, awesome premise, failed storytelling. The Division, awesome premise, failed storytelling. I mean, I'm at the point, man, where I just wonder if it's just. Don't make so many big promises with stories with these types of games. It just seems like it's very difficult. I mean, these are talented developers. Bungie is a talented developer. Ubisoft Massive is a talented developer. And we still can't get these stories into these games that have any kind of like meaningful impact. You're just kind of like, just going through the motions. Let me just go shoot stuff. It's just, this all sounds really great. It really does. I'm keeping my expectations really low and hoping the gameplay picks up for it, much like The Division and Destiny do.
I mean, am I crazy or does this sound like Destiny?
Oh, it does. It sounds
like
exactly.
The story.
Yeah, it does. It sounds exactly like Destiny.
Like Frankie, this sounds like Destiny, right? Like this sounds like the story of Destiny. And it's funny when you listen to BioWare talk about it. It almost sounds like they're talking about Destiny and that they've come up with this great new idea, but it literally sounds just like Destiny.
No, yeah, I agree with that. It's funny too because it almost feels like a smaller scale Destiny, right? Like you're only focusing on one planet at this point, whereas Destiny is the whole freaking universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think Destiny has a lot more they can explore in terms of locations and whatnot. But yeah, don't get me wrong, I love playing Destiny. The gameplay of Destiny is what keeps me going with that. Same with the Division. I think the Division's gameplay rock solid. That's the reason that a lot of us are going to come to that game. But this still comes back to that question of how many of these games can we really get into,
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this one, you know what I mean? Like you have when this game was revealed, this was like the game that all of us were hyped about last year.
Mm-hmm.
We're all Marvel fans. We all love Iron Man. The fact that this game looked like, holy shit, we're going to be able to play as basically our own customizable, Iron Man suits. That's going to be freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But like seeing the gameplay, and I don't know if it's just like as time has gone on, as Destiny 2 has come out, we got all this news about the Division. It's just with everyone else like clearly laying out like everything for us. Like we know that the Division, the whole first year of DLC is going to be free. We saw a ton of gameplay of that over the course of this weekend. Anthem, we have no idea what their plans are for post-release content. We have no idea what any of the classes are really there for. And I mean, we just have a vague idea of what some of the enemies look like. To me, like the way that they decided to show this game amongst everything else, not smart. Like I am seriously concerned that Anthem is going to come out and people are going to pass on it because, the Division 2 is coming out soon. Destiny 2's latest expansion just came out. I don't have time to get into another game like this, and quite honestly, I don't even know what it is. That's frustrating.
And Frankie, and to add what Frankie said, and this is going to be more subjective, I wasn't exactly blown away by the gameplay. I mean, you got everything Frankie just mentioned that we have questions about, we're not sure of, and we're concerned about. And the gameplay that I saw personally, for me, it just did not blow me away. I look at the Division, I'm like, that looks more my speed. That's something I want to play. Or I even look at Destiny 2. That's something I would rather play. I mean, it just was not a good showing. I just didn't feel like the combat looked all that great. I mean, you could blow stuff up, but just I feel like you're basically Iron Man, and the top speed from what we saw in the trailer looked like, I don't know if that was top speed, was just more like kind of like a hover. And I was just like, I want to be able to blast across the map. Even if it's just kind of like when you're on a Sparrow, you have that one boost for a little bit, but it's just kind of like you're floating along and you're hovering, shooting people. I mean, when I was watching the hover, I was like, I don't want to hover and shoot. Am I going to stand still, or am I going to have to balance myself hovering? Or the gameplay just did not do anything for me. I mean, it looked okay, but it did not blow me away. Nothing in there was like, I got to pick this over the Division 2, or I got to pick this over Destiny 2. I saw nothing like that.
Yeah, no, that's where I was at too. That's what was so frustrating about this. We've been waiting, for a year now to see this game in action, and this is what they decided to show us.
Mm-hmm.
And like the battles that they showed, they weren't anything like a massive scale or anything. It was over in a couple of seconds. Mm-hmm. So, and these were highlights from the mission.
Yeah,
this
wasn't. It wasn't exactly like a beginning to end demo. It was just like you'd see snippets. They'd cut away to something else. Just as things started getting interesting, they'd cut away to something else. Exactly.
Yeah, and then of course you get to the end, and it looks like you're about to have a boss encounter, which is what we want to see.
Yeah.
No, that's it. That's the end of the trailer. Like, why the hell was this what they decided to show with this?
It just fits the theme for the rest of the show.
I mean, like I said, you're right. A lot of the abilities look cool. Like there was that one where he like throws down, it looked like a dome, and then something that blew everything in it up. That looks cool, but how many times am I gonna do? Like, how many Nova bombs did we throw before? We're like, okay, yeah, that's cool.
Never. I never
well,
say
I
that. I watch Boyce
scrub.
I watch Boyce miss with his Nova
hole.
bomb all night, so I'm just like, that looks terrible. But go ahead, sorry.
By miss, you mean kill the boss, right? That's
that's how he took out Gaul. You just throw a Nova bomb and his health bar is gone.
Continue.
I do remember that. Yeah. Do remember that. So yeah, I mean, for me, what they show with the gameplay, I just think it didn't give us anything that we hadn't seen before out of the game. Mm-hmm. Like the gameplay trailer that we saw last year housed everything that we saw in this and more. Mm-hmm. So it's like the what they chose to show us didn't give us anything else about the game. And I just go back to the fact that with this game, like there's more we need to know. Like coming out of this reveal, we don't know how the loot works. We have no idea how the weapon system works. We don't know how the upgrades work. It sounds like you upgrade your javelin suits themselves, and you can upgrade and you can change between the different suits at will. There's minimal upgrades to your actual character. It sounds like you're upgrading the actual suits, but like, how do the upgrades work for the weapons? Like, how does all that kind of stuff work? At the end of the day, this is a loot-based online shooter. That's what these games are, and we don't know anything about, or we didn't get anything out of this demo in terms of how that aspect of the game works, which is one of the most important aspects of it. And, like you said, we don't know about the other classes. We don't really understand how it works from the base into the world and how all this kind of plays together. And, at this point, like I said, we've been playing Destiny for 4 years. We have an idea of how a game like this should work or how we want it to work. And, we don't know if Anthem is going to answer all those questions that we have about these kind of games at that point. So that's why I just feel like they really should have took this game and just did its own reveal. They should have set aside 45 minutes, packed a theater for just an Anthem reveal prior to E3, and just put everybody in there and showed us the nitty-gritty of this game, what it is, what the story is, how they're tackling narrative, and just all the questions that we have about Anthem, and just get it out on the table. And they didn't do that here. They showed us a gameplay segment that didn't show us anything that we hadn't seen from this game before. So,
the other problem that I have is, like I mentioned before, like the gameplay of the Division and Destiny is what brings me into those games. Watching this trailer, I don't, like Brent mentioned, I don't want to be flying around the air like trying to balance myself while I'm shooting at things. Like the shooting in this game just doesn't look fun to me.
You have to take into account overheating, from what I understand as well. Like your boosters overheat or whatever, so you can only fly for a limited amount of time.
It's like the thing. That's the thing about this game, though. Like,
and once again, we don't know how that works because they didn't really describe it or show it.
Right.
They mentioned you could upgrade that stat so you could fly longer, but they didn't really go into the specifics of that. So, just a lot of questions about Anthem at this point. So, not as strong a showing as we would have liked to have seen from them. I think we're pretty much all in agreement about that. There's light at the end of the tunnel, though. From what I've read from the people that have actually gone hands-on with this game, for the majority of what I've seen has been very positive about people's hands-on time with Anthem. So, I'm gonna get out there, try and read some more stuff up on it. But yeah, the people that have actually got their hands on the controller seem to be enjoying themselves. So there's at least that.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, and we're all in agreement. What a game looks like, how it's presented is one thing. How it feels to play is going to be completely different. So while I was disappointed with what we saw, we have a lot of questions, and the gameplay looked underwhelming. It could be a whole different world once we get our hands on the controller. But, I mean, obviously, and that's why it's important that we have people at E3 that are actually reporting this stuff. That's great. And it's important for all of us at home to, even though it was underwhelming, don't judge a book by its cover. We got to wait till we get our hands on it. It might be a completely different experience.
Yeah, and like you said, Brent, it's kind of just a theme of the EA conference was they just seem it's almost like they are oblivious to the fact like people are watching this event. There's millions of people watching this event on the internet. There's hundreds of people in an auditorium watching this event. It just seems like they were oblivious to the fact of like who was watching this and what the intended purpose of this whole thing was, and the Anthem segment just kind of nailed that home. But yeah, that's gonna wrap up our EA discussion here. I think you guys understand what we thought of the show at this point and what we thought of Anthem. So no need to beat a dead horse and that or driving any further. But thanks, you guys, for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the videos, leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. Hit the bell when you subscribe so that you never miss any of our content. We've got tons of E3 content up on the page right now. So if you missed any of our reactions to any of the big press conferences or what's been going on in E3 or at E3 over the last 3 days, make sure you check out everything on the page here. Other than that, for Brent, for Frankie, I'm Ben. Thanks for watching us. We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.